Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we, you know, try to figure out if someone's a visionary or just a really good con artist.
Yeah, yeah, if they're grifters or gifted.
Exactly. And today we are diving deep into the world of Carole Baskin.
Oh, Baskin, interesting choice. She's definitely made a name for herself online. I mean, between the big cats and her personality and the whole Tiger King thing.
Yeah, and that's why I think she's a perfect fit for the show, right? With that grifter or gifted
Mm,
question always looming.
for sure.
So we've got a whole bunch of articles and, forum discussions and even some court documents.
Wow.
Yeah. So just a quick refresher for anyone who needs it.
Yeah.
Carole Baskin, founder of Big Cat Rescue down in Florida.
Yeah, down there in Tampa.
Yep. And she kind of, became super famous or infamous, depending how you look at it, thanks to Tiger King.
Oh yeah, that Netflix documentary really blew up. I mean, talk about a wild world full of like eccentric characters and rivalries. It's like a soap opera with big cats.
And of course, there's the whole mystery surrounding her, right? The disappearance of her second husband, Don Lewis, back in '97.
Oh yeah, I can't forget about that.
Oh, and get this, there's a new twist.
What?
Yeah, apparently Don Lewis has been found alive and well in Costa Rica.
Wait, hold on, serious?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right?
That changes everything. I mean, we were gonna like unpack Baskin's whole journey from her early life to, you know, founding Big Cat Rescue and dive into all the controversies surrounding her and then examine like the impact of Tiger King. But this news about Don Lewis, wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it definitely throws a wrench in things, but we'll circle back to that for sure. Um, but first, I think it's important to establish some context, right? So,
Yeah.
Carole Baskin, born in Texas, and everything we've read suggests she's been obsessed with cats pretty much her whole life.
Like a lifelong cat lady.
Yeah, pretty much. She actually um, decided not to become a vet because she felt like it wouldn't directly help animals in need, so she went in a different direction. And that path eventually led her to Tampa, Florida, where she met Don Lewis, her second husband.
Oh, so this is where the whole story starts to get complicated.
Yep. And together they started a business breeding and selling big cats.
Oh, wow. Now that's interesting, given her current stance on things.
Right. It's a pretty big contrast because now she's this huge advocate against breeding and private ownership of big cats. She's always pushing for legislation to protect them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty stark shift. So was it a genuine change of heart, or is there something else going on, something more calculated?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? And to answer that, we need to kind of unpack the complexities of the exotic animal trade because there's a lot of money involved.
Yeah,
And Baskin's transition from breeder to rescuer puts her in a very unique and potentially very lucrative position.
definitely makes you think.
And speaking of lucrative, let's talk about Big Cat. Rescue her sanctuary for, abused and abandoned big cats.
Yeah, the one that got her so much attention.
In the surface, it seems like a noble thing, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
she's rescued hundreds of animals, and she's got this huge following of people who support her mission.
Yeah, but like with any organization, there are always different sides to the story. We actually came across some pretty interesting perspectives from former volunteers who paint a bit of a different picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they allege that there's this hierarchical structure within Big Cat Rescue where the people in Baskin's inner circle get preferential treatment and more access to the animals.
So like a pecking order, even among the volunteers?
Exactly. And there are also claims about these super strict rules about interacting with the cats.
Which Baskin says is for their safety and well-being.
Yeah, I mean, that's her argument, but some critics see it as creating like a zoo-like environment rather than a true sanctuary.
Which then makes you question the whole definition of ethical captivity, right? Like, where do you draw the line between providing a safe haven for these animals and, maybe exploiting them for personal gain or to boost your image?
It's a tough one, right? Is Big Cat Rescue really this haven for these majestic creatures? Or is it more about Baskin building up her public image?
And that's where the whole grifter versus gifted question comes into play, right? Is she truly dedicated to animal welfare, or is she capitalizing on a cause to build her brand and expand her influence?
Exactly. And I think to really get to the bottom of that, we need to look at her actions, her motivations, and, the actual impact of her work.
And of course, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, or I guess in this case, the tiger in the room, Don Lewis's disappearance.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, even before we knew about Dawn being found alive, it always felt like a true crime documentary.
Right.
Rich husband disappears, no trace vans abandoned, but there's no sign of anything, no struggle, no ransom demands.
And then there's Carole, who ends up inheriting everything. And
Right.
to a lot of people, especially with Joe Exotic fanning those flames, she becomes the prime suspect.
And you can't forget that Lewis had filed for a restraining order against her, like, right before he vanished.
Oh yeah, that definitely adds another layer.
He had also talked about moving to Costa Rica, and transferring ownership of some properties, so there could have been a financial motive there.
Yeah, that's all super interesting, but it's really important that we stick to the facts
Totally.
because despite years of people looking into it and investigating, no one's ever found anything that directly links Baskin to Don Lewis's disappearance.
Which brings us back to that news about Don Lewis being found, alive and well in Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's the bombshell.
We got to be careful, though. We need to verify everything, and we don't have all the details yet.
Of course, but if this is true, it changes everything. Like, it
Yeah.
completely throws out everything we thought we knew.
Totally.
It could clear Baskin's name completely.
Yeah. And it also brings up so many new questions, like,
Right.
where has he been all this time? Why did he disappear? And what does this mean for Baskin and her reputation after everyone thought she was involved?
It's like we're starting over from scratch, trying to put together a puzzle with like half the pieces missing.
Yeah.
But the stakes are way higher now.
Oh, definitely. Her whole grifter or gifted question hinges on this.
And it's interesting how this new development ties into all the debate about her advocacy work.
Right.
Some people think she's a true champion for these big cats, that she's using her platform to, raise awareness about the whole exotic animal trade.
And she's definitely been a big part of pushing for laws like the Big Cat Public Safety Act.
Yeah, the one trying to restrict private ownership and breeding.
Exactly. But there are still those who question her motives. They point to the fact that Big Cat Rescue actually benefits financially from these restrictions.
How so?
Well, I mean, the fewer private owners there are, the more animals are going to end up in sanctuaries.
Oh, I see. So it could be driving business her way.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's tough to ignore the possibility of, personal gain, even when someone's advocating for what seems like a good cause.
And that's what makes this case so interesting. It forces us to really think about, human motivation and how complicated it can be.
Yeah, like, is it possible for someone to be a shrewd businesswoman and a truly passionate animal advocate at the same time?
Right. Can those things coexist?
And how much weight do we give to public perception versus actual evidence?
Because people have such strong opinions about her.
Right, she's either a cold-blooded killer or this amazing hero.
It's hard to separate the truth from the story that's been built up around her.
Yeah, especially nowadays with social media where information spreads so quickly and people form opinions based on just headlines and sound bites.
Totally. Tiger King really played a role in that,
Yeah, for sure.
whether it was accurate or not.
And she's not exactly shying away from the spotlight.
No, not at all. She's all over social media and using her website to promote Big Cat Rescue and her advocacy.
She's even got her own podcast now, The Cat Chat.
Oh, wow. So she's really good at using the media to her advantage.
Oh yeah, she's definitely crafting her own narrative, but that same skill set can also be used against her because she's faced so much criticism and even threats online, especially after Tiger King.
And then there's the fact that she's pretty litigious, always getting involved in lawsuits and stuff.
Right, so is she just fiercely protecting animals and herself, or is she trying to silence her critics?
It all adds to the whole grifter or gifted debate.
It does, and now with Don Lewis reappearing, it's a whole new chapter in this already complicated story.
Yeah, will this clear her name or just raise even more questions?
It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Definitely. It really shows how even in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with information, the truth can still surprise us.
And maybe, just maybe, this will finally help us figure out who Carole Baskin really is. It really is amazing how she's become such a, controversial figure.
Yeah, you either think she's a stone-cold killer or like a total hero for animals. There's no in-between.
I guess it just shows how obsessed we are with these, larger-than-life personalities.
Right, we love the drama, the mystery, trying to figure out who's the good guy and who's playing us.
And with Carole, it's like she's playing a bunch of games at the same time, right?
Totally.
The animal welfare game, the legal game, the media game.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
And each game has its own set of rules, its own winners and losers. It's easy to get lost in all of that and forget about what's really important.
The big cats.
Exactly. No matter what you think about Carole's, those animals need us to be looking out for them.
Totally. They're the ones caught in the middle of all this. And it just highlights how much we need responsible conservation and, to treat animals ethically, even in captivity.
So after all this digging into Carole Baskin's world, where do we land on that grifter or gifted question?
I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah.
She's brought a lot of attention to the problems facing big cats and pushed for some major legal changes.
But there's still so much we don't know about her motivations and her past.
Like the breeding stuff, the Don Lewis case, the things former volunteers have said, it all casts a shadow.
And that's what makes it so hard with someone like her, right? The truth is hidden under so many layers.
Of perception, speculation, self-promotion.
So what can our listeners take away from all of this, from this whole mix of charisma and controversy?
I think the important thing is to be critical. Don't just believe the headlines or the carefully constructed stories.
Right. Do your own research.
Look at all sides of the story and then decide for yourself.
Because the world isn't black and white. People are complex, especially people in the public eye.
They can be flawed and do amazing things at the same time.
And in the end, it's up to each of us to decide who we believe in and what we want to support.
But we should do it with, a healthy dose of skepticism and a real desire to find the truth.
Well said. And as for Carole Baskin, well, I have a feeling this is just another chapter in her story.
Oh, for sure. This whole thing with Don Lewis being found, it changes the game completely. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah, how it affects her legacy.
It reminds us that no matter how much we think we know, the truth can always surprise us.
And maybe, just maybe, this will finally help us understand who Carole Baskin really is.
Yep.
And that wraps up another deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explore the complicated world of a woman who's got everyone talking and asking that same question, grifter or gifted?
The answer, as always, is more complicated than it seems.
See you next time.